Welcome to the Bold Podcast. I'm Todd Bertsch, entrepreneur, mental fitness coach, and keynote speaker. I believe every person has a spark, but life, pressure, and doubt have a way of dimming it. Here's the good news. You can reignite it at any moment. That's what this podcast is all about. When you fuel your spark, everything changes. Let's ignite it together. Today's guest is Michael Krumpak, an award-winning author, speaker, and executive coach with more than 30 years of experience helping leaders and organizations perform at their best. He's also an expert in learning and development for leaders. Listeners, get out your pens, get out your notepads. This is going to be a masterclass in smart leadership. Michael, welcome to the Bold Podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Todd. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation. You notice how I said smart leadership?
Yep. And I have to like interject because you're right. Like we have this mindset of like we need leaders to actually be smart. But actually, I'm kind of trying to blow up that belief that you really don't need smart leaders. You need legendary ones. So everything in the book is about how do you take someone that you hire them because of their credentials, they have great experience, they look good on paper, but when pressure and times get tough, smart isn't what we need anymore. We need legendary. And there's actually 9 pieces or 9 vectors in the book that really take kind of that definition that we all have of we need smart leaders and try to blow it up and really paint this new picture of what legendary leadership really looks like.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for putting me in my place, Michael. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is good. So we're really talking about this amazing book. Thank you for sending me a copy. Highly recommend it. Why smart leaders, which is why I said smart, do stupid things. Lessons learned from lousy leaders. So, Michael, every book starts with a moment, right? That moment of, oh, I have this burning desire, this burning message that I need to get off my chest and out there into the world. When was that moment for you that you just had to get this out there?
Yeah, I think it came probably about 10 or 15 years, and then I sat on it for a while.
Oh.
So I was working for a major electronics firm right outside of New York City, doing lots of leadership development. So I ran leadership development for their high potentials, for directors that we were trying to promote to VPs, for managers, for senior managers. And so we spent all the time building all these models and content and doing training. And then after the training, I would walk up to people and say, how's it going? What have you been doing? And they would always say, remember that story about like the guy that jumped on the table? And like people would resonate more from the stories of what I didn't really call it lousy leadership at that time, but like toxic leaders, ineffective leaders, whatever you want to do. But people would tell me about the stories and how that evoked change in their behavior and their thinking and their mindset. And time after time after time, people would come up to me and say, oh, yeah, I remember that story. And here's what it meant to me. And here's how it like changed my behavior. So it was over time, it was almost like it was a superpower that I had that I didn't even know in terms of like how to tell stories. So that was really the first time when people gave me feedback of like, wow, those stories really made an impact on me. So, and part of my leadership career, like I've been doing this since I was 18, doing training and development, and then eventually leadership. But I have so many stories and so many observations of things that bad leaders have done. And it's so easy to flip it and do the opposite. And that basically becomes a strong leader or a legendary leader as I have. So to go back to your question, it was more of just observing people making mistakes and hopefully learning from those mistakes, sharing those stories and training and coaching, and just kind of building this portfolio of all these stories. And I'm like, it would be interesting to fold these into a book.
Yeah, I love that. And then the title is a little, let's say, direct,
Yeah, it's a
right?
little, yeah.
Lessons learned from lousy leaders. Like really, would you pass this to one of your leaders, and how would that make them feel? So it's a little uncomfortable, right?
It is.
So why the title, and why now do you feel like
It's
this
a
is important?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question. It is bold. It is disruptive. I started in a writing academy that was sponsored by the National Speakers Association several years ago. And we would like kick out titles, and I had all these titles. I had Why Smart Leaders Do Stupid Things. I had Check Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself. I had
Oh,
all
I
these
love
different,
that. Going back to the
yeah,
80s,
I had all
Rex and
these.
Effect.
Yeah. And this is like a time when I started writing the book where AI was just starting to emerge. So someone gave me some website where you can actually put in a title of a book that you're thinking of, and it will basically assign you a score. And literally, the first title that I had was Why Smart Leaders Do Stupid Things. And then I added the tagline, Lessons Learned from Lousy Leaders at the bottom here, and it said it was the best one. And I tried changing it many times. I tested more things, but you're right. It's something that really catches you off guard. And I encourage people, if they're working with a leader, whether they're an amazing leader or they have an opportunity, like this is an opportunity to be courageous and pass the book to them, because it's not about blaming, it's not about criticizing. And I say no one wakes up and says, "Hey, I'm going to be a bad leader today."
Right.
But typically over our career, typically when we pull things from past successes, past projects, past organizations where we've been really successful, and we're not quite in tune with what's going on in the dynamics of the organization or the culture, we tend to do stupid things because they may have worked for us in the past. So this is really an opportunity to pause, reflect, calibrate, and learn from some of the mishaps and missteps of some leaders in the past. So, yeah, I know it's a little bit bold, it's a little bit disruptive, but it's designed to get people to pay attention. And then through as you read the book, and I'm happy to talk about the way the book is structured and the journey and everything, but over time I think you sort of get it. If like the point is really to take smart leaders and make them legendary. And my methodology, at least in this book, is let's look at the perspective of some derailed leaders and see what we can do to make sure that we don't make those same mistakes before.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you went out there and said, I have something, I want to put it out there. I want to be a little disruptive. And we need that. The workplace is struggling right now. I had a change management consultant on a few days ago on the show, and she was talking about this disruption index, which I wasn't.
Interesting. Okay.
And it is forecasted at 100% over what it used to be. Like exponentially, the disruption is taking place right now in the workplace. And we can just see it, right? I don't need to see an index. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it. If you're a leader, if you're a business owner, if you're responsible for employees, it's out there. Disengagement, burnout, mental health, resigning. It's just, retention, all the things. But there's a point I wanted to make. I'm looking at the book up here. Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett always said one of his mottos is the best way to grow is to learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah. Amen.
And I would say, and your own mistakes. To your point about, and that takes somebody, just taking a moment to pause, which I think is another major issue that we have just in society in general, let alone with leaders, because we have so much on our plate, so much to do. Just taking a moment to pause, reflect, and maybe even journal or whatever that looks like, those prompts to get you to reflect. And then looking at the wins too, celebrating those wins and what you've done well, but also how you could grow and getting into that growth mindset. And we see that the best, most successful leaders, and as you call them, legendary, are the leaders who have a growth mindset or are willing to get into a growth mindset and have really lifelong learning, right? You can look at any of the top leaders and that's their top quality. They never stop. They're always open to feedback, and that's all about a growth mindset. So I love it, Michael. I'm excited. Let's dig into the book. I think this is
Great.
the way that it's laid out. I don't know if you want to just go through the chapters quickly or if you want to go into the legendary leader flight plan.
Yeah.
Either way, we can just take a quick one and just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me do that. So let me talk about the leadership model. So I wrote this book over the course of 5 years. Really, like the last 3 years were pretty intensive. And I rewrote the book so many times. And it was about a month before my first transcript was due. And I had this great book of great stories, but it didn't hang together. And I felt like I needed a framework, a blueprint, or a model. So what I did is I put together what's now called, it's had a couple name changes along the way, but the Legendary Leader Flight Plan. And they're basically 9 vectors that will take someone from doing okay to becoming what I call as legendary. And the word spells legendary. The L stands for liberation. So that's basically creating a culture where people feel like they can speak up, where they feel psychologically safe, where leaders can be vulnerable and say, I screwed up. Can you give me some feedback? Or I'm not quite sure we're at 100% right now. Can we talk through it? It's a place where the quiet people feel comfortable to speak up and the loud people realize that they're loud and maybe have stronger opinions. They seek input and feedback from other people. So that's about liberation.
Yeah, if we can, let's pause there for a minute because I'm a huge fan of that one. We're talking, I think it's really, I don't think you can move on to the rest of the pillars or vectors as you call them until you build that safety net, that psychological safety where your team feels able to speak their mind, to take more risks without fear of judgment, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to be more creative. We're going to be more innovative. We're going to have better conversations. And you're going to build that trust. Like you said, that bridge that is really important for you to have that true on collaboration with your team and then to really get the growth and impact and success that everybody wants. So I just wanted to take a moment, and if there's anything else you want to say, because this is a critical piece, folks.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad that you stopped me on that because I have been doing webinars on the topic before the book even came out or came to fruition. And everybody has that same reaction. Like, I've never seen liberation mentioned in a leadership framework. And it's quite kind of interesting, but you're right. I think this is a huge blind spot that leaders don't really focus on. And just by calling it out, naming it as liberation, there's also a free assessment that I'll share how everyone can take a free 3-minute assessment to figure out what you're good at. But it's a place where you can get awareness to say, hey, is this a strength of yours or is this an opportunity for improvement? And liberation is something that I think is so important that we don't call out, that we don't name, that we don't focus, that actually can have a huge impact. And I just want to pause and say, these vectors, even though they spell the word legendary, they're not mutually exclusive. It's not like you start with legendary and then you work on expectations. They all work in harmony, and depending what the situation is, you can kind of dial up or dial down some of the vectors. But yeah, liberation is really creating the conditions for innovation, openness, and risk-taking. That's the model.
And I love that, creating the conditions. Creating the conditions. Yep. Awesome.
And then the other ones, I won't go into too much detail because I think you probably know what they mean. The next one is expectations. So, like creating goals, I always say inspect what you expect. A lot of people just
Mm.
as they call out, this is what success will look like, this is what we expect. They think that's good enough and they don't
Mm.
follow up. They don't ask questions. They don't have
Mm.
conversations. They don't check in.
I love that.
Growth is the next one.
Oh yeah, we're going to spend some time there.
Yeah, yeah. And I've actually been putting together some videos on each of these vectors. And
Mm.
one is around growth, where I had an employee say, "Oh, she knew everything she ever needed to know to be successful at her job, and she didn't want to go to leadership training." So it's like people, and you had mentioned like Carol Dweck, the growth mindset. Like,
Hmm.
how do you really change people's mindsets to go from a fixed, I know everything that I need to know to be successful, to growth? It's like, crap, things are different than they were a month ago, a year ago, like
Oh,
everything. So, how important is it now more than ever to really check ourselves and see, like, are we growing? Are we developing? And just when you mentioned that, what was it, the disruptive index?
yeah, yeah. The change disruption index.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like realizing like that number as it goes up, that means we're not doing something effective or as effectively as it
Mm.
needs to. So it's paying attention to all those data points around us that really give us an indication. Are we giving legendary leadership, or is there an opportunity to do something a little bit different? So that's
Y-
growth.
Yeah, and I want to, if I can interject for a minute, Michael, and you said a key word there, data points. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's critical for us when you are open and you're curious. And this is a key here. When you're open and curious and get into that growth mindset, you can start to see everything as an opportunity. And when you do that, those are data points, right? Because
Mhm.
essentially, really what we're doing, we're scientists. We're experimenting.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah. Yeah.
iterating. And when you think of it like that, like think about most scientists, 90% of what they do is failure. If they can
Mhm.
get that one big, we got
Yeah.
it. We have
Yeah.
this cure, right? How
Yeah.
often does that happen? So imagine being in that position, having that as your career, day in and day out, every day, you're failing, failing, failing. So
Mhm.
you can't, fail fail forward, fail fast, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's all about how you perceive it, your mindset, and seeing it as a lesson. And I always say, like, let's just pretend we're scientists. And I have to practice this with myself because I have perfectionist tendencies, and that's not good. So I just
yeah.
say, I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to learn from it. But a couple of people in the past few weeks have said data points, and I'm like, that's it. That
Mhm.
resonates with me. I'm just
Yep,
collecting data. And what do you do with data? You
yep,
review it, it's insights, and then you make tweaks and changes on that, right? So
yeah,
sorry, I just wanted to, I'm hot on that right now, and I feel
yeah,
like we need to spend a moment on it.
yeah. And if you embrace that scientific mindset and say, okay, I wasn't successful with my experiment here. Now I have a little bit more knowledge, so my next experiment can be even better. Like, I want to keep failing so I can get closer to finding out what the solution is. So I
Right.
think that's like so important with growth mindset, and especially today.
Absolutely. But you can't do that unless you have the space, right?
Right.
Number one, liberation, right? You
Yeah.
just can't.
Yeah.
Your team won't because you haven't
Right.
given them the permission, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I see leaders in our coaching practice all the time. I want bold. I want innovation.
Mm,
I
mm.
want risk taking. And then employees fail down, and then they're chastised, they're screamed at, they're yelled at. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you're trying to create this culture of risk taking and innovation, you should celebrate that.
Mhm.
So one of the stories that I have in my tool belt is from a
Oh,
company. I don't think they're around. I think they merged with another company, but they were called Juniper Networks.
I remember
And
that.
they had this program where they would celebrate the person at the company that made the biggest mistake of the month. So I
Oh my
remember
God.
one person, and this is like many years ago, they plugged the internet in the phone outlet and the phone outlet in the internet outlet, brought down the whole internet for a whole day. So it cost thousands and thousands of dollars, cost so many problems. But rather than like making a big deal and firing that person, they actually gave them the, I don't know, Mistake of the Month award. And I thought that was just such a really innovative way to like let people know, it's okay to fuck up. It's like you can make mistakes and learn from it and like celebrate them, share them with other people. Now, everyone knows green goes to green, red goes to red when we go ahead and plug our phones in or our internet or what have you. It's like as we celebrate those mistakes, like it's so important. And I always tell like leaders, like you should end your meetings with some questions like, what's the biggest mess up that we had this week?
Mm-hmm.
How can we learn from it? How can we share that learning with other people? And that's how you build effective teams. That's how you build trust. That's how you get people to take risks, push the envelope, and become more innovative. So I think that's super, super important. So
I love it. And I just wrote down, it's the mom award.
Yeah.
It's the mom award, mistake of the month. I don't know how everyone's going to take that, but I'm an acronym guy. It's something I can remember. But hey, who's getting the mom award?
The mom award. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Trademarked. Boom. I love it. I love it, man. That is great program. That's how you do it. You create a program wrapped around that. Now that's embedded in the culture. But I'll say too, Michael, like you can do that, but I think it's really critical that the leaders are also contributing, right? They're not just out on the sidelines watching. They're actually contributing, saying, hey, I won that, I made the mistake too. Because it's really important for us to see that trickle down. And speaking to the choir here, you know that.
Yeah. It starts at the top. If you're telling people to admit mistakes, but you yourself are trying to come across as confident and perfect and, you can do no wrong, like you should be the first one to say, hey guys, let me tell you about my biggest mess up this week. Mm-hmm. Here's what I learned. Here's how we all can be better because of that. Who else would like to share so that we can become better? Like it's a lot of it is just simple questions, simple curiosity, simple discipline, quieting the space, the pace, the flurry of activities, just to think of what are some questions I can ask myself to increase my awareness, and what are some simple questions that we can get people to pause, slow down, and like just come together. And we don't do that. We get so busy. We're overworked. We're so stressed. We need good leaders that say, you know what? Let's pause for 5 minutes and talk about celebrations, or let's pause 5 minutes and talk about some lessons learned that we've had. So critical.
Yeah, I love it. There was a social graphic I put out a few weeks ago, and it said, we look at W's and L's, wins and losses, right? Typically. Mm-hmm. And I saw this actually on Ink Master out of all places. This guy was on there, and he didn't make it to the next step. And he said, I see W's and N's not as wins and losses, but as wins and lessons. And my wife looked at me. She said, "You're going to use that, right?" I'm like, "Damn tootin', I'm going to use that. That's good." Yeah. Wins and lessons. So yeah, I love it, man. You gotta have that space, and you have to create a program. Be creative, be innovative in the way that you create this, embed this into your culture, and then you can start to build. I know this is towards the end of your flight plan. Your model is resilience, but we'll get to, but as you start to have those failures, then you start building that resilience.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is key to being legendary.
Yeah, and like you just made a great point. You can't demonstrate growth unless you have resilience. You can't grow unless you create that culture or try to create that culture of liberation. So they all like
Hmm.
connect with each other.
Yeah, I
But
love it. You nailed it. It's a great flight plan. I mean, I'm looking at it. I just want to talk about them all. But
yeah,
and the next one's one of my faves. So,
yeah. So the next one is empathy. And
mm,
I always say connection over correction. And I
mm,
think so many times we're so focused on getting results, making
mm,
sure projects are on track, that we don't pause and ask questions to try to connect with people. And everybody has different experiences, whether it's culture, whether it's where they grew up, whether it's organizations that they've worked with, teams that they've worked with. Everybody has a different point of view. And I think if you can connect with people in the most meaningful way, then they're going to work really hard. And in the book, I tell a story of I just moved across the country. I started a new job. I was having personal problems with family. I couldn't find a place to live. It was all this stuff. And my boss called me in her office and she's like, "Hey, something seems a little off. You can like open up to me. I'm here to listen." And I just went, "I can't find a place to live and my mom's sick and all this stuff." And she's like, "All right, what do you need?" And I'm like, "Shoot, like, I don't know what I need." It's like,
right. You weren't
I
ready for
need
that.
a little bit more time to find a place. I need a little flexibility to wrap up my loose ends in DC. It's like, she asked questions. She was there. She was present. And I'll let you read the book for the whole story. But it was one of those situations where I'm like, I needed someone to listen and be present and be empathetic. And let me tell you, I worked my ass off for her after that because
Mm,
she connected with me. I'm a pretty confident person like you. I'm kind of perfectionist. This was kind of a blip where I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure it out myself, but I couldn't. I was stuck. And I needed someone to have an open posture of empathy, to ask questions, to provide support. And right after that, I bounced back. And every time I'm in a situation since that, like years, this has been probably 8 years or so. I think of that story and I'm like, all right, how can I connect with someone to be there when they need me? It's not about getting the project done. It's not about getting results. It's not about hiring that CEO that we need. It's just being present. And I think if we can provide empathy to feel what other people are feeling, it really is just the grease that gets everything else going in a high
mm.
performance team. That's so important.
Man, yeah, and I love it. And I'm gonna share. So I was a lousy leader. I
Mm.
should be in this book. I was. So lessons learned from a lousy leader. I was
Mm.
a lousy leader, and I had a lot of characteristic issues, tendencies, right?
Yeah.
Insecure with myself. Uh, I wasn't able to lead with empathy, Michael.
Hmm.
So I learned that over time. I wish if I were to go back, if there was one thing, it would be to understand how important it is to lead with empathy. And I mean true on like authentic, right? Not just to do it, but to really be passionate and empathetic towards your people.
Hmm.
Um, Man, when I made that shift, my whole business changed. You
Mm.
know, retention was much longer. The production was higher. And a lot of not being empathetic was I was just trying to get much more out of my people. And in
Right.
fact, it was doing the opposite. They were burned out, pissed off, and leaving.
Hmm.
So after reading the horrible Glassdoor reviews, which really hit hard, and
But
then, the emotional toll, the physical toll, the financial toll that revolving door, right, takes, I said, I
hmm
need to make some changes. And that was a
yeah.
fork in the road moment for me. And I was in a fixed mindset. I wasn't
Yeah.
open to feedback, criticism. I wasn't creating that. It was all the thing. Like I'm going through this, I'm thinking, yeah, I was the lousy leader. And I'm okay saying that because I want people to understand that you can make the shift and it's okay. It's okay. I failed, but at least I made the change. And now my company is doing the best it's ever done. And my people will go to war for me because I've built that trust and I give them the freedom, the flexibility, the space, right? Yeah. So this is a really critical pillar vector in here for sure. But not everybody has this. Not everyone has this.
Yeah. No, and good for you to be vulnerable and just admit the fact that, hey, like you didn't say I want to be lousy, but for whatever reason, you got to a place where things just weren't fitting together. The structure that you probably put together was probably tremendously successful. And then over time, things change. People, you said, were getting burned out. People were leaving. Revenue wasn't quite where you need to be. And like, good for you. That's an opportunity where things don't. So we intend to be successful. We put together a plan. Oftentimes it works really well. And then when it starts to fall apart, the smart people keep pushing, they keep forcing, they keep saying, oh, it's going to work because this is the plan. It worked before. I got all this validation. People are sponsoring me. They say this is the plan, but you're like, hey, it's not working. So pause, open up this like lens of empathy, ask questions, be curious, try to figure out like what people need. Okay, people feel overworked. Why did Sally just leave? Let's do an exit interview on her and find out, collect that information and say, you know what? This is pretty lousy, this situation. And I need to like break it all up, put it back together and figure out what I can do to like become a stronger, better leader. And that's like the example, like we all screw up. I have so many stories in the book of times where I wanted to give people feedback on how to be better, but I gave them way too much feedback. Every little thing I was thinking, I overwhelmed them, pissed them off. They stopped going to work. They walked out on the job, like all these things. I'm like, I was just trying to develop someone. Like I'm a industrial organizational psychologist. I help people become better. But I screwed up. I was so passionate because this person had so much potential, but I shut them down. I learned from it. And then I did the same thing like 10 years later. So it's like we all have these hiccups and we all screw up. And it's like, that's the beauty of imperfection, just to acknowledge it, figure it out. And we can't do it all together. We need a friend, we need a buddy, we need a resource, we need a podcast, we need something to help us understand that things are a little bit different and the game has changed. We need to figure out how to play it now differently.
Yeah, I totally agree, Michael. And I think the trick or the challenge here is that how do you get somebody who's not open to it to change? And that's what I've been trying to dig into and figure out. You know, you can lead a horse to water, you can't force them to drink it.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be drinking some of the water, right? Or at least be open to it. And I think it goes back to, because you've said it 4 or 5 times in this episode already. And I think in this, if you actually tilt your flight plan slightly, it's a C. And that C is for curiosity. Curiosity,
my new co-author.
Curiosity is the throughput, right? The through line to every one of these, because every single one you mentioned being curious, asking questions, being open-minded, asking open-ended questions. You know, what if? What else could be true? And it goes back to just not making assumptions. Yeah, because you know what happens, and it's just being curious. But if you're in a fixed mindset, you're not curious. You've given that spark has dimmed. Yep. Right. So
and that's so important. Like, how do you work with someone who doesn't know that they have some opportunities for improvement? And there's actually part of this whole ecosystem that the book is part of it. The Legendary Leader Flight Plan is part of it. We have the Legendary Leader Radar Assessment, which you go to whysmartleadersdostupidthings.com. You can take it free. If you look at the book You can even look at the preview on Amazon and get the QR code and scan it. It's literally a 4-minute assessment. It's going to tell you your top two and your bottom two strengths and opportunities for improvement based on these 9 vectors. But what we find when you're working with someone, and granted, if it's a first-time manager, it probably isn't worth the investment. But if you're trying to get people to understand, like, where are their blind spots? Where are their weaknesses? How do we prioritize what their top strengths are and what their like bottom opportunities for improvement are? A 360 is a really good tool. And typically, when me and my colleagues do executive coaching, especially for like directors, definitely VP, C-suite, we always start with a 360. And, for those people that don't know what a 360 is, just real quickly, you assess yourself, your manager gives you an assessment, and then you go out and you ask people. You ask managers, you ask your direct reports, you ask senior managers to you, you ask customers, and everyone gives you this feedback, and you're like, wow, it's interesting that my manager loves me and says that I'm very empathetic, but no one else is saying that I'm empathetic. So I must be managing up really well. And that's why trust is deteriorating in my team. So it's a great way to do a snapshot to find out what hidden strengths you might have or weaknesses. So we're a big proponent of assessments. There's a lot of different assessments, or you can just do your own assessment, like read the book. At the end of each chapter, there's questions that are designed to give you a gut punch to help you be your own assessor to figure out, wow, I really need to think a little bit differently about this. People are leaving my team. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I need to do some sort of either formal assessment or just informal reflection to try to figure out what those opportunities for improvement are.
Yeah, I love it. Love the 360.
We'll be right back after a quick message. Hey, it's Todd again. Right now, leaders are facing unparalleled challenges with burnout, disengagement, and rising stress across our teams. And that's why mental fitness matters more than ever. Mental fitness is the ability to respond to pressure with clarity and confidence instead of stress, negativity, or self-doubt. It's about building that self-command, especially when it matters most. Through the Positive Intelligence Program, or PQ for short, I work with leaders and teams to reduce burnout, strengthen resilience, and create a culture where people feel supported, engaged, and capable of performing at their best. This neuroscience-backed program helps teams shift from reactive to resilient and turns change into a catalyst for growth and innovation. Look, I've been practicing PQ for years, and it fundamentally changed how I lead, work, and live. It's transformed my life. If you're curious whether PQ could support you or your team, I invite you to visit toddbertsch.com to learn more about this transformational program. Now, back to the show.
Are you familiar with Marshall Goldsmith?
Oh, yeah.
Love Marshall, love his books. And one of the things that he does in his 360s is he actually interviews the person's spouse or partner as well. And I'm like, ooh,
I didn't know that.
That's taking it to a whole he wants, right? Because here, and one of my good friends, Scott J. Allen.
Okay.
You know Scott?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we talked. So Scott's favorite quote is from Hogan. And it says, "How you lead is how you live."
Yep.
How you live is how you lead.
Yep.
Yeah, how you live is how you lead. And that's it. I mean, how are you at home? How are you at home with your family? There's a lot to learn there. And maybe, and that's the 360, right? That's everybody. So anyhow, yeah, I saw that. I love Marshall and great books, but
yeah.
Oh man, we could go on and on.
Yeah,
Michael.
yeah. And also, like, I'm a big fan of Hogan as well. We're certified to do Hogan. So those people that don't know Hogan's, it's like a personality assessment to figure out your leadership strengths, derailers, and all of that. And what's his name? John Hogan?
I think it's Ben.
I thought it was John, but okay. Mr. Hogan, we'll call
Mr.
him.
Yeah, it's not Hulk.
He's like, the you that you know is hardly worth knowing. And I think this is from, I think, B.F. Skinner as well, or some other, famous psychologists in the past. But the whole point is we all think that we know ourselves because we have intentions and we
Right.
execute on those intentions. But everybody else around us has a different point of view. So the point is we don't know ourselves as well as everyone else knows. And if you don't ask questions, you're not going to round out things. You're not going to see around the corner and
No.
find that, hey, I think I'm rewarding someone by giving them more work. And they're like, why am I being punished? I'm doing a good job. And now I keep getting more work. So it's just like we all have disconnects all the time. And Hogan is a great way to kind of explore some of those disconnects. And it looks at your leadership in times of strength and times of like, we call it the bright side of leadership, where there's not a lot of stress, not a lot of pressure. But then in the dark side of leadership, when you don't have enough sleep, or you're at happy hour and you've maybe had a couple too many drinks, or people on your team are leaving, there's all these times of strength. They can highlight derailers. And if you're aware of what your potential derailers are in times of stress, you can actually like change the blueprint on how you want to be a leader as well. So there's so many good things out there, and it all comes down to like get feedback, get data.
Right.
And I like
Right.
what you said about Marshall Goldsmith, like asking spouse. I never thought about that. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I need to kind of sit on
I think he
but
takes them out to dinner too.
perspective. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's in his book. It's up here. What got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, one of my favorite books.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's a good one. So, Michael, why don't we just quickly run through the last few of these? I know we just stopped and went down a rabbit hole on empathy, which it deserves. So let's quickly go through the rest, because I think they're all good, and we want to give them some time.
Yeah. And I think the ones that we went through, liberation, expectations, growth, empathy, like those are the ones where I get a lot of feedback, a lot of input, a lot of questions. Those are really important. The other pieces of the model, I'll just walk through them real fast. And if you want to go back, we can. Negotiation. So it's just basically having conversations. It's not about what you want. It's what's best for the team, best for the company, best for the organization. Kind of related to that is decision making. So in the book, I tell a story, and in our keynotes, we open up with a story. This is Flight 401, which many years ago crashed in the Florida Everglades. And basically, the whole reason was there was a light bulb that was burnt out in the cockpit. So everybody became fixated on trying to figure out why the light wasn't lighting up for the landing gear, that they wrecked the plane because no one was flying the plane. And it's just a huge story about decision making that applies to so many other areas of the book. And I always tell people, like, as a team, are we focusing on the burned out light bulb, or are we raising our head? Are we elevating our perspective?
Right.
To find out more of like what's the root cause to other programs. So it's fascinating. You have to read that.
Yeah, I just made a note on that guy.
Yeah. And then adaptability and resilience. Those are kind of brothers and sisters to each other.
Yes.
And then finally, another one that I get a lot of feedback and a lot of comments is the Y in Legendary, which is yielding. And I think it's nice that it's at the end, but yielding is when you step back. So you've created this environment of liberation. You've clearly set the expectations. You've demonstrated empathy. You've done everything that you need to do. And then you let your team figure it out. Even when they're failing, you don't interject. You let them fall on their face, figure it out, learn from it, share the learnings. And that's the hardest thing. People tend to delegate tasks. And then as soon as an employee struggles a little bit, oh, here, let me help you. And their intent is, I'm trying to help you be successful. But sometimes people need to take a little bit longer and make some mistakes to figure it out. So yielding, I think, is another really, really high impact vector in the Legendary Leader Flight Plan.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll add to that. I love the one concept from EOS delegate to elevate. You can't elevate, right?
Yeah.
You can't elevate somebody if you're not allowing them to learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you're just stepping in, you're just delegating. And hell, you might as well just do it yourself.
Yeah, delegate to elevate. I'm learning so much from you, Todd.
Hey, man, look at all these books.
I know.
Now I learned that one. I learned the hard way on that one. So that was part of being a lousy leader.
Yeah.
1, not delegating for so long. 2, delegating but not elevating.
Yep.
And man, when you can do that, frees you up.
Yeah.
People grow and people stay.
Yeah.
It's so simple, Michael. It's so simple. All these things.
That's the main reason. Like on the back cover, it has kind of my bio and everything. And basically the last thing is helping leaders build cultures and driving transformation so that people want to stay. Like that's it. That's all we need to do is create a place where people can do more than they can individually as a team with great leaders and building an environment where people are happy, they're satisfied, they're productive, they're getting something, they're giving something, and your employees want to stay. That's it.
That's it. That's the silver bullet, the secret sauce right there. And it's the simple secret sauce. I love alliteration. Michael, this has been awesome, man. We can go on and on. Like I said, listeners, this is a masterclass in how to be a legendary leader, not a smart leader, a legendary leader.
But a legendary leader.
Hey, Michael, so tell us a little bit about how the book is structured in case anybody's interested. They just want a little bit of a high-level preview.
Yeah. So it starts with the way that the table of contents is written. So for each, and of course I can't find the table of contents. Okay, table of contents. So it basically has the name of the chapter. So for example, Liberation is chapter 1, cleared for takeoff. It talks about what you'll get, and it tells you about how long it'll take to read the chapter. So for example, the Liberation chapter is 13 minutes. And then each chapter is structured the same way. It starts out with the story of a lousy leader. Then it goes through what I call a spiral, which is basically, what is this lousy leader thinking? In their mind, they're not trying to create fear or anxiety. They're trying to fix a problem. They're trying to get results. So it basically goes through inside the mind of the lousy leader. What were they probably thinking? And most of the times they're thinking that they're doing the right things. It's just their execution is wrong. And then after you go through the story, it ends in what's called black box reflections. So there's this aviation theme that's in the book.
I love it.
And if you know, whenever a flight goes down, they find the black box, a data recorder, they look at more data. They look at the voice recorder and they find out what happened. And it's always, in my opinion, it's either a disconnect in communication or in bad leadership. So kind of interesting. So there's black box reflections. Then there's final approach questions. And these are questions that are super, super tough. They're written by the highest caliber type of coach out there. We call it a master certified coach, or an MCC. So for example, in the Liberation chapter, the question at the end that's designed to help you reflect is, what signals am I sending, either intentionally or not, about what truly matters in my role? So basically you read the story, you see the good, you see the bad, you have black box reflections, you have final approach questions. So everything is designed to help you have a journey. And if you scan the QR code and take the radar assessment, you can just skip right to the chapters that you need a little bit more reinforcement or perspective on. So it's not a theoretical book. It's more of a conversation. And then with that, and I'm happy to give anyone that gets the book from our podcast today a free companion guide. The companion guide is a list of all the questions in the book Plus, there's areas for reflection and journaling. So it's designed to like help you get the most experience. It's part coach, part journal, and it's designed to do that. So I'm happy to give you some information that you can, I don't know, put in the link or something like that, so people can get the free companion guide as well.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. I love how it's structured. Makes a lot of sense. It sounds like it's, just a nice, easy read to get through it.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely include all the links in the show notes to all the books we referenced, as well as your book and all the assessment tools and this companion piece as well. So awesome. All right. Michael, this has been great. We're going to come down to the last piece, which is the lightning bolt round. You can't have the Bolt podcast without a lightning bolt round. So these are real quick, Michael. 1, 2 words.
Okay.
If you could describe leadership in one word, what would it be?
Geez. I would have to say legendary.
Oh. All right. Fair enough, my friend. Legendary. Who's a leader you admire and why? Could be living or dead.
You know who I really think is interesting is Herb Kelleher, who was the CEO of Southwest Airlines a long time ago. So I'll just, if you want to know more, you can ask. But
I've read some things about it.
Yeah, he has this book Nuts that's pretty crazy. But the thing that I love, like one example of what he did is like the organization was struggling. They needed to cut like thousands of dollars. He got the employees together and said, hey, what can we do to trim some expenses so we don't have to fire people? So just a really good, innovative leader at a time when the aviation industry was really just starting to boom.
Right. Who doesn't want to follow that guy? Right.
Yeah.
I love it. Any personal growth, leadership books, Michael, aside from your own, that you would recommend, your mainstays?
So I have never read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Oh. I've quoted it. I've heard videos.
Same here.
So it's in my Amazon cart to order. That's like one thing that I'm working on. And then personally, for my development, I've been reading Building a Story Brand, which is more of like, how do you brand your messaging? So kind of, having opportunities to work on podcasts and things like that. So really trying to step up my marketing and branding, which is something that just doesn't come naturally to me. Unlike you.
Practice what you preach, right?
Yeah.
Lifelong learning. Love it. Yeah. Great.
Exactly.
All right, Michael, if you can leave us with one final powerful message or quote, could be a mic drop moment for you here on the show, what would that be?
I would say the mic drop moment is find time in your schedule, treat it as sacred, treat it as a gospel moment where you don't schedule anything over, whether it's Saturday morning at 7 a.m. or Sunday night at 9 p.m. before you're ready to go to bed, but find space to reflect and think of ways that you can be more curious with yourself, your teams, and your organizations.
Love it. Thank you, man. It's been great. I look forward to continuing our conversation and possibly collaborating with you. Love the book. Listeners, go check it out. Tons of links will be in the show notes. And Michael, I wish you the best of luck, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Thanks for the opportunity. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for spending time with us on the Bolt Podcast. If today's conversation sparked something for you, please share it with someone who could use it. That ripple is how we create impact and light the way for others. Remember, growth doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from small, intentional shifts that build over time. Ignite your spark, fuel the fire, and light the way. We'll see you next time, my friends.